Is it the night before your job interview and you're stressing out? I got you. This is how to ace a job interview and tips in general. Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm going to be talking about some job interview tips and just my overall experience and how to help you guys if you are about to go in for your first job interview, your second, and you just need some help. I thought I would share some tips, research that I found, and personal experience. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing might seem like an obvious one, but that is to research the company. So whatever company you're applying for, make sure to research them on their website, their social medias, know when they were established, know their mission and vision statement if they have one, and just get familiarized with everything on their website. It's better to have that knowledge. Why would you interview for something that you don't know anything about? Even if it's something as simple as Chick-fil-A, you should still know their values and their mission statement, their vision statement, just because it shows that you did your research and that you genuinely care about this job. The next thing is to dress appropriately. And in my very first job interview, I was 16 at the time, and I went in and I was wearing a dress, and I had learned that in my college prep classes and stuff like that, to always dress appropriately. No matter if they say that it's a casual interview or not, always dress appropriately. So if you're a guy, make sure to wear like a nice dress shirt and nice pants, no rips. For girls, I would definitely recommend not wearing pants. I would say to wear a dress. If you can't do that, opt for a skirt. And if you can't do that, nice pants, no rips, a blouse, not just a t-shirt, something very nice, and show that you've done your hair, you've done makeup, you look clean. I actually was complimented on my very first interview. Later on, when I did get hired, the person who had interviewed me was a supervisor, and she was talking about how I was super young, and I was actually one of the youngest people at the time of the company that was hired. And so she had said, I noticed that you were young, but you had dressed really nicely, and that showed me instantly that you cared and that you were mature enough to know that this is how to dress for an interview, and it made me more inclined to want to hire you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that it had that big of an impact. So make sure to dress appropriately. The next thing is to practice a lot. So grab a friend and go over what you're going to say. Plan it all out, but don't plan it out too much to the point where you would get stuck if you went off of your script. So make sure to practice and know the job description. So if a job description is given, make sure to almost memorize that and really know it, so that way you can bring it up and you can use that terminology in the interview. Now for the day of the interview, arrive early. This also is an obvious one, but it is so important, especially if the company has a sign-in sheet. They can go back and see what time you signed in and that you're early. And then along with that, going hand in hand, is to, when you're sitting in the lobby or the waiting room or whatever spot you're waiting for as you're early, don't be on your phone. It's just going to show that you have good character and that you're not super focused on your phone. I know you might be tempted to be on Instagram, to be texting, but silence all those things before you walk in. Don't be on your phone as you're walking in, completely in your pockets, in your bag, and walk in without your phone. This will show maturity. This will show that you are clear and driven and focused, and you're not being immature on social media, and you're really focused. And the whole time when you're sitting there, as much as it might be weird just staring around at the walls, trust me, it'll be a lot better. Okay, now once you get into the interview, make sure to, as much as possible, shake people's hands and introduce yourself with a clear and loud tone. Not loud, but like a clear tone, so that way they are not hearing you mumble, you're not being quiet, they can understand you, and just be respectful overall. If you feel led to, you can also not sit down right away and wait for them to say take a seat instead of just making yourself at home like too comfortably. Just be respectful in all aspects. And then a huge thing is body language, is just to sit up straight. If you're slouched back like this, it's going to show, rather than sitting up straight and showing that you care and that you are mature. That's a huge thing if you're young. I'm guessing most of the people watching this video are going to be young, going in for a first or second interview, so that's super important to show how much you care. And if you're standing during an interview, don't be putting your hands on your hips. Don't be like awkwardly like standing around. Stand up straight, stand clear with your hands at your sides. Like, you don't need to be like weird or anything. Just like normally standing there, but like mature, respectful, and just showing good posture and body language. The next two things go hand in hand, is knowing what's on your resume and having a good resume. Knowing what's on it is important because they might reference something and you should know what's on your resume. And then another thing is also an obvious one, but it's not to lie about anything on your resume. This should be a given, but I'm sure there are people out there that make up jobs, they make up things, and I would just say make sure that any experience you have down, you actually did, because they could bring this up, or later in the job when you do get hired, it will be brought up, and you don't want to have to try to cover up a lie. That's just not right at all. So make sure to be honest and straightforward and authentic in everything. Something that I wasn't prepared for when I went in for my first interview was that they're going to ask you for some of your weaknesses. And this is really hard because you don't want to give away something that's like too big of a deal where they're like, okay, we don't even want to hire this person. Don't dwell upon, like, everyone struggles, no one's perfect, but they want to see how you're going to react to this question. So if you already know that it's coming, or they might not ask you this at all, but I'm sure that they will, is to be prepared for it. So I have a few on a list of ideas that you could use for your interview. So one of them is that you focus too much on details. This could be a good one because it's not going to show that you can't do things, but it's going to show that you might focus too much on details. Another one is that you lack confidence and that you need a lot of direction. Another one is that you have trouble asking for help. And then another one is taking on too many projects at once. So I recommend spending 80% of the time talking about your weaknesses when they ask you this question. And then the other 20% is just to give a quick little brief just segment on how you're going to improve on these things. Don't just say, yeah, I'm really bad at this. You can say, I lack confidence and this is a weakness, but I'm going to work on it and this is how. It's a lot better than just saying, I lack confidence. Like, they're not going to be inclined to that. You have to show that you have some kind of motivation to change this and you're not just going to stay the same. So the next thing that they're going to probably ask you is for some of your strengths. So in your strengths, you don't want to come across as too prideful with saying, oh, I'm good at all of these things and this is all the things I can do well, but you didn't have any weaknesses. You want to be able to have this balanced, but you also want to give some that are going to be strategic in order for them to realize that there are multiple strengths in one strength without being too broad, if that makes sense. Another thing is not to speak badly of previous employers. Maybe they weren't the best. Maybe you worked at McDonald's and it was terrible. But don't bring that up. You could just say, I worked at McDonald's and it wasn't a pleasant experience, but I learned such and such. Instead of saying, yeah, that job was not fit for me, it was horrible, and I had the worst time ever. It's not going to show that you have a respect for the company, even though it might not have been a good experience for you, because that's going to show them that you are giving them a bad rep, which means that you could, in the future, gossip about the company you're applying for, and they just don't want to hear that you're giving off a negative vibe with your bashing on another company. So just try to keep it straightforward. It might accidentally come out if you really had a bad experience, but just try to keep the negativity on a low. Something that happened in my most recent interview was the fact that I was stumbling a little bit. I had to go through an extensive 2-hour interview for the job that I'm currently in, and there were times where I just didn't have the answer right away. And it's okay to not be perfect in every little aspect of your interview, but something that's important to remember is that if you start to stumble or you can't think of the answer right away, is just to ask for a brief moment to think. Don't take a 5-minute break to think, but just give it a few seconds and think about what you want to say instead of just on the spot. And that's okay. That shows that you are at least respectful enough instead of saying, I'm not sure. And that's ultimately just because it sounds a lot better than saying 100 times. And then one of the final things is to not use a tone that sounds like you already got the job. This could be deceiving and it might sound weird if you just keep talking as if you already got it, like, oh, it's in the bag, I've got it. Use a tone in such that you were a great candidate, but you are not already hired. This tone is just not the best to use because it could be confusing and it doesn't sound right, and it's just a lot better just to keep it as an even playing field that you were a great candidate but you don't already have the job in your hands. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys. If you have any other tips that you guys would like to leave down below, I would love to read them in the comments, and I'm sure other people would benefit from them too. And if you guys have any just general comments, things to add, things to ask questions about, I would love to answer your questions. Just go ahead and comment those down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!